the greatest battles we fight aren't out in the world, but it's deep within ourselves. We carry the weight of expectations, of responsibility, of love given, and love withheld. And in the quiet moments, we are faced with the question: am I choosing myself? Welcome back, listeners, to the Mindful Journey podcast. I'm your host, Sana, and today I am joined by someone who doesn't just ask that question, but she helps others live the answer. Listeners, meet my lovely guest, Vesta Hurlbutt. She is an empowerment strategist, health coach, oponopono practitioner, and a single mother who has walked through the fire of stress, responsibility, and reinvention. She knows what it means to lose yourself in the noise of life, and more importantly, what it takes to reclaim your worth, self love, and power. So, listeners, this conversation is about unconditional love, not the fluffy fairy tale kind, the romantic movies and novel stuff, but the gritty, resilient kind. It's about becoming our own superhero or superheroine. And it's about the radical power of choosing you even when the world tells you otherwise. So, Vesta, welcome to the show. And I'm really, really honored to have you here with us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's definitely my pleasure to be on your show.
Absolutely, Vesta. Um, Now let's begin the conversation with trying to understand what exactly unconditional love means. So many of us we think it as something that we give to others. Like a mother's unconditional love for her children, um, or a lover's unconditional love for their partner, or something like that. But your work it often points inward first. So what does it look like? When it's directed at ourselves.
Yeah, I think unconditional love, it sounds so amazing. It sounds like, of course, I unconditionally love my son, of course, right? But I think growing up, I had the vast difference between real life unconditional love and a very conditional love. And I appreciate the the contrast between the 2 that I grew up with, especially at became an adult, and I recognized my dad unconditionally loved me so much that I'm still in awe how much that love taught me that it was okay to be myself, because I think there's so many expectations put on people in this world
Mm.
that when you truly, truly lead and love, you're unconditionally loving yourself specifically, but also your loved ones. And, I feel like I firmly, firmly believe my son can come to me and he
Mm.
can do anything. And it doesn't matter. I love him. And that's an unconditional love. I don't have, it doesn't, unconditional love doesn't mean that if you're a parent, it doesn't mean you can't say, um, you know, your 12-year-old son, like, I expect you to graduate from high school and I have these tiny expectations for you, but it goes past that. And when you become an adult, it's, I want, like, chase your dreams. You become who you firmly believe you are. And if it changes every day, that's fine with me too, because I love you from your soul to your being, the whole thing. And so that's unconditional love to me. The people I love, there's nothing that they can do. And then, I say that loosely, there's nothing they can do that, I probably maybe somebody can do something to hurt me to where I don't unconditionally love them, but I don't know. I don't think that's a possibility.
Oh, yeah, definitely, definitely. And then, you know, uh, it's such an encouraging thing to say, to hear, even if it's directed at our loved ones or maybe at ourselves, that no matter who you are or who am I love you for what you are. And that's that's really it gives such a feeling of warmth and belongingness. And Vesta, have you been ever asked, or maybe you have encountered with this, sometimes there's a very thin line between unconditional love and obsession. It kind of becomes toxic. Have you ever encountered such scenarios or maybe skepticism around this?
Absolutely, especially from myself, right? I'll call myself a recovering skeptic, and in general, well, in some capacity, I find it hard some not now. I'll say not now, but and sometimes it sneaks in, but I have a hard time believing anybody could unconditionally love me. But then when they do, is it too much? And what happens is the reality is no. When I like to talk about my son and my dad, and I have sisters and brothers, and that I unconditionally love all them too. But I like to talk to them specifically about my son and my dad because my dad taught me unconditional love. He loved me no matter what. He thought I was crazy sometimes. He thought I was weird sometimes, and he thought I did the most outlandish things at times. But I never once felt in my heart that there wasn't gonna be a time that my dad loved me. It wouldn't matter if we had an argument, which we did regularly. We were very different humans, but
Hmm.
he loved me all the time. So, I don't think as far it's, like, obsessive because I guess it potentially could feel that way or be that way, but it's not about, like my dad didn't drive me crazy with the amount. I mean, now especially now as old as I am, I feel so lucky to have been unconditionally loved. He called me every week. When I was, near him, we hung out. He loved my son unconditionally, which is amazing, and I got to watch that too, and my son gets to grow up and be whoever he wants to be, and my dad loved him unconditionally, and so do I. So, no matter what trials and tribulation this world gives my son, who's 22, the world is gonna give those they're gonna be those trials and tribulations in the world, and he always knows that he has love to go back onto. Because love to me, and I know it's cliche, but love does make the world go round. Love is what makes people happy, whether it be friendships, workplace, kindness, in the world, like, love is so important, especially for yourself, because if you can't love yourself, then you can't love other people, not fully. That's my opinion.
Totally, totally. And this is universal. It's like the sun and the moon, the stars. It has been there. It's timeless, and nothing can actually replace this. Whether it's tech, nothing can replace or replicate this. It's that beautiful, and I really feel that warmth. When you say that how your dad, your father loved you unconditionally, and your son as well. And yeah, exactly. Whatever, no matter what amount of trials or tribulations we face, we always have that hope, that silver lining in the cloud that we have love to go back to. So that's a strength. That's not something.
Absolutely.
It's a strength for all of us. Oh, okay. And the next part of the conversation is something that I also kind of learned during the process of adulting, that in our childhood, now also sometimes we see all the movies out there, the comics and stuff, that we'll have these heroes who will come and rescue us, especially for girls. We have been told stories that somebody will come and rescue you whenever you're in problem, but that's not what it actually is. And you often talk about becoming our own hero. So before we try to understand that, was there any turning point or moment in your life, Vesta, when you realized no one was coming to save you? And how do you advise others begin that shift without feeling left out or isolated?
Absolutely. I There's not like a specific moment, but there were moments, I guess. I was a single mom. I raised my son by myself. That's why the importance of my dad unconditionally loving my son was so important too, because then he had that male role model or whatever you want to say. But I was struggling, and I was It's in relate as far as relationships go, I was
Mhm.
I was always like, "I want a relationship," and I want but I in my
Mhm.
head, I was like, "I want a relationship to help me with I want a man who's gonna come in and help me with the bills, maybe help me with my responsibilities, maybe help me with all the wrong reasons for relationships." Like, I was looking for that white knight to come in, swoop in, and help take away some of my stresses. But the reality of it was I wasn't looking for a partner. I was so as all these things, I don't know, they add up so much and I start feeling this crazy amount of anxiety and I just feel stuck in this life of every day performing for everybody else until eventually it just builds up and you're like, "Okay, how can I get myself out of this? I wanna live a life of happiness. How can
Mhm.
I do that?" And that's when, you really start to figure out like, "Oh, I can do this. I can make myself I don't need a man to help me do all this stuff." Now that's not saying I don't want a companion eventually or whatever. That just means what that means is my happiness, my self-love, my self-care is all in my own hands. It means I can go out and I can make myself happy. I don't need somebody else to make me happy. And I firmly believe that when I'm happy and whole, that's when I can offer the best companionship in all ways too, as a friend, as a girlfriend or whatever, like I have to be whole and happy with myself before I can really, look outward. And that's what being your own superhero is really all about. It's about taking your happiness and your health in your own hands and just be like, I got this. I don't need somebody to do this for me. I got this.
Definitely, definitely. And I mean, this can be twisted in so many different meanings. Some would say, "Ah, this you are outrightly selfish," or uh, you're kind of giving that vague idea of feminism that we don't need any man to help us out there. But I think this is when when you understand the context here, it's not about somebody, I don't need anyone. I do need, but I don't need anyone to be my crutch or my weakness, or I don't need to cling to anyone for my own happiness or for self love. I am full in myself, and definitely when I am happy, I love myself. That love will also translate for my companion as well.
Absolutely, and that I think that's super key. I'm raising a son, and I don't want him to ever feel like in fear or like he's not like he's inferior for any reason whatsoever. And I want him to be, and he absolutely is. I'm not gonna lie. He talks about his emotions. He talks about all these things, but I never he knows he's number one in my life. And but I just think it's important that I need all kinds of people in my life. I have so many amazing relationships in my life, friendships, men, women, family, you name it. I have those amazing, and I call them they're soul friendships. Like I have so many of them, and it's so important to recognize I need those in my life. But that's part of knowing how to be your own superhero because I have had toxic relationships in my life, men, women, friendships, however you want to say it. And the importance of the becoming my own superhero is recognizing if it's toxic, it's not for me. And that's okay. It's okay that this person is not for me. And it might be something where it's okay that this person is not for me right now. I need to heal myself a little bit more on the inside before I can handle being this person's friend or companion or whatever. That doesn't mean that that doesn't mean you're choosing you as far as like you're selfishly cutting someone out of your life. What you're doing is allowing yourself to grow and be healed so you can be better for that friend.
Definitely, definitely, yeah. And that's a very important distinction. I mean, it's empowering, and it's also, and I feel that this is a perspective a lot of people need right now. And as you mentioned about power of, the power of choosing you, now, this world, it really rewards sacrifice and hustle. um Especially, we have to like be people pleasers, or always take care of others. But sometimes in all that hustle and chaos, we completely lose the sense of being ourselves. And when, let's say, we are communicating that, okay, I'm choosing myself first, and obviously when I will take care of myself, then only I can take care of, others. That may be interpreted as selfish. So how do you differentiate between healthy self prioritization and the guilt that often comes with it, Vesta?
That's a great question because, self-love, people think self-love, choosing you, people often think, "Oh, that's selfish." But ideally, what the power of choosing you is I love being Blaze is my son. I love being his mother. There is nothing in this world better than being his mom. He lives really far away from me now, and I still love being his mother. The idea of choosing me while I'm raising a son by myself, or even if I have help and all that stuff, but the idea of choosing me, honestly, is
Mhm.
being happy, choosing my happiness, finding my happy places in the journey of making him my priority. And that's that because he's my priority. Not that he's less and less my priority. He's always my number one because he's an adult now. He's doing his own thing, but he's a priority. He's always going to be, and that's never going to change. But you are allowed to make the sacrifices, be the best mom you can be, but you're also allowed to be happy while you do it. You're allowed to take a day, an hour, 5 minutes to yourself and be like, this is my me time, even if it's 5 minutes drinking your cup of coffee. Like allow yourself to be happy and just think about you for 5 minutes. Don't think about the schedule you have to keep because 'cause you're gonna keep that schedule. I'm not telling anybody, "Don't keep your schedule," but I'm telling you you are allowed to say, "Right now, this next 5 minutes, it's all about me. Love you, Blaze, but today, this 5 minutes right here is all about me." And that is not selfish. That keeps you replenished so you can be a happier, healthier version of yourself for your children, for your loved ones.
Totally, totally. And I also very strongly believe, Vesta, that, um, it's a two-way. The the one, who we are loving, and they also love us back. They also understand this, that okay, they need their own, maybe 5 or 10 minutes or whatever is the time of their own time. They also need their space. So let me honor that space as well. That's
Absolutely, and just like you're going to say, if you're in a committed relationship or with my son, sometimes I'll be like, "You wanna go do this, that, and the other? I can't wait to be around you." And he's like, "Yeah, I kinda just wanna be alone." I respect that too, you know? And I'll be like, "Oh, okay. That does not mean he doesn't love me. That means he needs 5 minutes by himself."
exactly. Totally. Totally. And that's a very, very healthy approach. That's a very healthy approach. It's a very healthy dynamic in there. Um, and now I want to move into another, it's a very, very important aspect, when it comes to self-love. We often, when we picture self-love or self-worth, we often kind of, equate it to um indulging in activities like, loving ourselves, or grooming, or going all happy places. But the very important part of it is, forgiveness, or compassion, self compassion. And you say that forgiveness of ourselves and others, it is tied directly to our sense of worth. Now, this is something I would love to explore, Vesta. So, what exactly do you mean by this? I mean, how do we begin forgiving ourselves when the mistakes feel too big or that shame or guilt feels too heavy?
That's a great question, and I think I have shamed myself so much. And I don't wanna assume that everyone is like me, but if you ever have that feeling of all the little things that you've done wrong, you feel like that you perceive that you have done wrong. Usually they're parent-based, maybe you one time Blaze came to me and he's not in college and he said he was upset and he said, "I should be doing more with my life. Why am I like, what is wrong with me? Because college is not for him right now, and that's fine." But he's like, "What is wrong with me?" And I'm like, "Buddy, that there's nothing wrong with you. It's fine. Your journey is not theirs." Right? So I'm just saying, like, if we find these pockets, these bits of shame or where we don't feel like we're good enough, and we find all these little and if you for me, I have done this so much in my life that I could go back, and just go back and just have a long list of all these things I've shamed myself about, and sometimes they still pop up from something 20 years ago, and I'll be like, "I did this thing 20 years
Mm,
ago," and I'm shaming myself, and that whole your body and your heart holds on to that.
mm,
So a lot of things that I do, if it's something as a parent, we picture perfect parents. I don't know, everybody's picture looks different.
mm,
I did the best I could. And when my son was little, like if I don't know, blew up over something stupid or silly and I got mad at him and I reacted in a crazy way, which happened a lot, let me tell you. And and then if I think about it right now, I have to take a breath and just remember I did the best I could. He is an amazing human. And when I think about the stresses I was under and, uh, I was the best I could be, and if I expect more out of myself, then
mhm.
I can't go back and change it. So
Yep.
I have to take a breath and I have to forgive myself. Sometimes I have to do a meditation to forgive myself, depending on how deep it goes in my heart. It might be something silly to other people, but in my
Mm,
heart, I have to remember the best thing for my self-worth was it is reminding myself that it is okay to not be perfect, which is crazy because perfect is just an illusion anyway. So I have to remember, like, I'm perfect just the way I am, mistakes and all. And when I say those words, I can feel that in my soul. And then it makes you like, oh, okay, I'm perfect just the way I am. And that's okay. Like I'm perfectly imperfect.
mm. That's a beautiful line. I'm perfectly imperfect, and it really calls for us to honor that messiness. I mean, after all, we are humans. We make mistakes, um, and I really understand. I mean, sometimes when we think or we kind of have that feeling of shame or judgment, that why did I take that decision? Why did I do that? If I had taken a different decision, this wouldn't have happened. I'm like this. I'm really a bad person. I'm really a weak person. That really affects our sense of self-worth. That really gives a lot of clarity into this.
Absolutely. I think self-talk, positive self-talk and appreciating the journey, appreciating exactly where you are, they're the 2 fastest ways to get yourself out of a negative talk funk.
Totally, totally. Um, and before we wrap this up, Vesta, I would like to bring in a bit of nuance, because now some would say, okay, it's a lot of positive, a lot of motivation, but if unconditional self love, if we love ourselves for all the time, that will really, it's a kind of a way to accept ourselves as we are. We stop striving for growth, or we stop, getting into that comfort zone, getting out of that comfort zone to change ourselves, or to grow ourselves. So, what do you say to people who fear that loving themselves as is means they'll never change or they'll never have to change?
I think oh, that's such a great question because I think it's so important to know yourself,
Mhm.
listen to yourself because I think, "Oh, in some aspects I'm always growing. I'm 100% of the time growing, and sometimes it's so scary. I've gotten to the point where I wanna do everything so well that I feel I was shaming myself because I was failing because I wasn't going high enough. I wasn't going and then I that's when I start thinking like, "Oh, this is the journey I need to appreciate. Look where I was 2 years ago." I'm always growing, and I think when you truly, truly love yourself and you truly wanna be the best human you can be, you're always going to grow. If you feel stagnant, do something that scares you because I promise then you're gonna be like, "Oh, I wanna grow." And now the cool thing about growth is I look where I was 2 years ago and look how far I can still go because my growth changes in different areas of my life as far as, you know, like some things I am content with right now, and it might change next year. It might be my healthy eating and my diet right now, I'm very content with. And that might change in a year or 2. I might wanna try something new, or I might wanna do this, and I'm always doing new things. But the importance is don't be afraid to try new things. Don't be afraid of growth, because when you're afraid of growth and you actually, I actually I recant that or I retract that statement. I think you should be aiming for the growth that scares you because that growth that scares you is what's going to stretch you and you are going to be like, "Wow, look how amazing I am. Look how far I can stretch."
Yeah, yeah. That actually can be very, very encouraging. And I think that really, once again, calls for us to not to compare us with anyone else, because everybody has their own unique growth trajectory or a unique story in there. I think it's a very healthy way to kind of analyze or do a bit of self introspection, comparing our own version of past with our present version. And that's the very, once again, a very healthy attitude, whether it's with our professional lives or our personal lives. And coming to being our own superhero, Vesta. Now, since the major conversations, and especially we're talking about mental health nowadays. Now, sometimes, even, including myself, I'll be very frank. Sometimes I really feel that sense of shame in admitting that I am anxious or I am not doing mentally well. Or, sometimes people with depression or, bigger mental health issues, they really feel that resistance in receiving help from others. So how how do we uh, you know keep that balance between self-reliance and community also?
I think it's really important to see where you are for yourself. And some why are you anxious? A lot for me, I like to do a lot of root cause stuff. What is my root cause of everything? And just no, it's okay to be anxious. I work day to day in a hospital where I take care of people's hearts and they come in and have procedures and I say, "Listen, it's okay to be nervous. That's absolutely normal." What's and that especially when it comes to your feelings or your self-love or your shame, it is okay to feel those things. Some of it you need to figure out why do I feel shame? And that's why the being imperfect is so important for me because a lot of my shame comes from I have a vision of what perfect is. I have this weird, crazy vision of what perfect is, and I wanna meet that vision. So when I shame myself, it's because I'm not meeting this impossible vision. It's an impossible vision. Nobody, not famous people, nobody meets this vision of perfect. So that's why it's so my a lot of my shame comes from, here's what I expected of myself, and here's why I'm shaming myself. The idea for me is I have to love myself while I'm aiming for those goals. If I don't meet those goals, I need to pay attention to what I'm learning, how I'm learning, and the amazing journey I'm on. I it's this there's always something in this life always. That is you need I don't wanna force anybody to do anything, but there's always something in this life that can be appreciated, always. If you're down and out, there's something that you can appreciate, and then when you start that consistent flow of positivity and happiness and amazingness, then you really, really are setting yourself up for a trajectory to loving yourself. But you have to one of my tools, if I start feeling bad about myself or I'm shaming myself more often, one of my tools is in the morning when I do my appreciation journal and I do different kinds of journals. I write down 3 things that I love about myself. And when I started that process, it was very hard. I was like, "Do I love 3 things about myself?" And then it was, "Oh, look at all these things that I do well. Holy moly." And it just starts to come then. And it's really nice. That's a nice tool to have.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Okay. So, Vesta, of course, if our listeners they would like to connect with you and seek your wonderful resources, what would be the best way?
You can DM me on Instagram. My Instagram is, VL Hurlbutt, Vesta VL Hurlbutt. Um, you can DM me there, or you can message me. You can email me at Vesta@vitality with Vesta.com. Super easy to reach. I will always reply. Might take a couple days because, yeah, life is also happening. But, yeah,
Yeah.
please reach out. I have a podcast called the Open Heart Healing Podcast that I, um, I also talk about different methods and ways that I've opened my own heart to allow so much love in that I just want to share all that love.
Beautiful, beautiful. I'll make sure to have all the links in the show notes. And Vesta, thank you. Thank you so much for reminding us that resilience, love, these aren't lofty ideals, but these are everyday practices. And thank you so much for reminding that unconditional love isn't about perfection, it's about being imperfect.
Yeah, it
Perfectly.
absolutely is perfectly imperfect. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, of course. And to all the listeners out there, maybe today is the day you stop waiting for rescue and instead whisper to yourself, I choose me. Because sometimes the bravest thing we can do is simply love ourselves without condition. Until then, this is the Mindful Journey, and I'm your host, Sana. And please do check out Vesta's website, her details, and also listen to her podcast, Open Heart Healing Podcast. And just refer to the show notes along with this episode. Until then, this is your host, Sana, signing off. Thank you.
Thank you.